I didn't think much of the noise the first night. That's what bothers me the most now. I booked the place for a quiet weekend outside Asheville. Just needed a break. No work, no people, just a small cabin in the woods and some time to reset. The listing looked perfect, cozy, clean, and completely private. The host even described it as peacefully isolated. At the time, that sounded like a good thing. The first day was normal. I checked in around 5 p.m., unpacked, and spent the evening watching movies on my laptop. The place had that typical cabin feel: wooden floors, low ceilings, and that faint smell of old timber. Nothing felt off. It wasn't until around 1 a.m. that I heard it. A faint thump, then another. I paused my movie and just sat there, listening. It sounded like it came from above me, like something shifting across the ceiling. I remember looking up instinctively, even though I knew there was nothing to see. I actually laughed a little. Old houses make noise, that's what I told myself. Still, just to be sure, I texted the host. "Hey, quick question. Does the cabin have an attic or something above the bedroom?" He replied within a minute. "Just the roof space, no attic. The house settles at night sometimes." That was enough for me. I shrugged it off and went to sleep. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same sound. Except this time, it didn't stop after a couple of thumps. It dragged. That's the only way I can describe it. Like something being slowly pulled across the ceiling above me. Not heavy enough to be loud, but not light enough to ignore. I muted the TV and just listened. There it was again, a slow scrape. I felt that weird tension in my chest, the kind where your body reacts before your brain catches up. Still, I convinced myself it was something natural. Maybe an animal on the roof, a raccoon or something. That explanation worked for a while. By the third night, I wasn't so sure anymore, because now it wasn't just sounds, it was patterns. It always started around the same time, between 12:45 and 1:15 a.m. It always lasted a few minutes, and it always stopped the moment I got out of bed. That part didn't make sense. I tested it that night. I stayed completely still when it started, pretending to be asleep. The dragging sound moved slowly across the ceiling, then stopped directly above me, right above my bed. I held my breath. There was a faint creak, like pressure shifting, then silence. I don't know how long I laid there like that, staring at the ceiling in the dark, but eventually, nothing else happened. That was the first time I felt something was actually wrong. The next morning, I started paying attention to things I hadn't noticed before. There was a vent above the closet door, just a small rectangular one, nothing unusual, except there was dust around it that looked disturbed, like something had pushed air through it recently. I stood on a chair and held my hand up to it. Cold air brushed against my fingers. That didn't make sense either. The cabin didn't have central air. That's when I opened the closet. At first glance, nothing seemed off. Just a few empty hangers and a folded blanket on the top shelf. But when I looked closer, I noticed something above the shelf. A thin outline in the ceiling, a square panel. I hadn't seen it before. I dragged the chair over and climbed up again. The panel wasn't secured. No screws, no latch. Just resting there loosely. My stomach tightened. I don't know why I decided to open it. I really wish I hadn't. I pushed the panel up slowly, expecting maybe insulation or just empty space. Instead, my phone flashlight caught something immediately. Fabric. Dark, crumpled fabric. I pushed the panel up a little more and angled the light inside. There was a sleeping bag up there. Not old, not dusty, used. Right next to it were empty food wrappers, a plastic water bottle, and something metallic that reflected the light for a second. I didn't fully process it at first. Then I did. Someone had been living up there, right above me. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I dropped the panel back into place and climbed down from the chair too fast, nearly losing my balance. And that's when I heard it. A shift above me. Not subtle this time. Heavy, deliberate. Like whoever or whatever was up there had just moved. I froze. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me not to make a sound. Then came the slowest, quietest creak, directly above the closet. I didn't look up. I didn't grab my stuff. I just walked straight to the front door, trying to keep my steps quiet, controlled. I was halfway there when I heard something drop behind me. I turned. The closet door was slightly open now, and the ceiling panel was pushed up from underneath. Not all the way, just enough to leave a dark gap. I didn't wait to see more. I ran. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove straight down the gravel road until I had cell service again. Then I called the police. They showed up about 30 minutes later. I stayed on the line the whole time, watching the cabin from a distance, expecting someone to come running out. No one did. When the officers went inside, they found exactly what I saw: sleeping bag, food, personal items. But here's the part that stuck with me. There was no one up there, no sign of forced entry either, which meant one thing: whoever had been living above me had another way in and out. The police took my statement, contacted the host, and said they'd investigate further. Apparently, the property had been vacant for a while before being listed again. They told me I was lucky I noticed. I didn't feel lucky because I keep thinking about that third night, the moment when the sound stopped, directly above my bed, the moment when something shifted and stayed still. I wasn't imagining it. Someone was up there, listening, waiting. And the part that still messes with me is this: if I hadn't opened that panel, I probably would have stayed one more night. I booked that Airbnb for a work trip. Nothing unusual. I travel a lot for freelance video editing, and I've stayed in dozens of rentals without any issues. This one, though, it's the only place I've ever left in the middle of the night. The apartment was in Chicago, downtown, modern building, really clean. It had great reviews, all 5 stars, and the host seemed responsive. Self-check-in with a keypad, no physical interaction needed. I got in around 7 p.m., dropped my bags, and did what I usually do. Checked the place quickly, made sure everything felt normal. It did. Nothing out of place, no weird smells, no strange setup. Just a typical studio apartment with a small kitchen, couch, TV, and a bed against the wall. Around 10 p.m., I heated up some leftovers and sat on the couch watching YouTube. That's when I got the first message. Hey, just a reminder, please turn off the kitchen light before going to bed. I stared at my phone for a second. I hadn't mentioned the kitchen light. I hadn't messaged the host at all since checking in. I looked over. The kitchen light was on. It felt weird, but not enough to panic. I figured maybe it was a standard automated message. Some hosts send reminders. Still, the timing was off. I replied, "Got it, thanks." No response. I brushed it off and went back to my video. About an hour later, I got another message. "Also, please don't leave food out overnight. It attracts pests." That one hit differently because I had literally just left my takeout container open on the coffee table. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't told anyone. I looked around the apartment slowly, like I was expecting to find someone standing there. Nothing. I typed back, "How do you know that?" No reply. That's when I started noticing small things. There was a smoke detector directly above the bed. Pretty normal. But right next to it was a small black device plugged into the wall. Looked like a USB charger. Except I wasn't using it. I got up and unplugged it. It was warm. That didn't make sense. Nothing had been connected to it. I set it on the table and just stared at it for a while. My brain was trying to stay logical. Maybe it was faulty. Maybe it just held residual heat. Still, something felt off now. I decided to shower and try to reset my mind. While I was in the bathroom, I kept the door slightly open. I don't know why. I just didn't like the idea of being fully closed in. Halfway through the shower, my phone buzzed again. I stepped out, dripping, and checked it. "Hope the water pressure is okay." I felt my stomach drop. There was no way to explain that one. No way. I didn't reply this time. I just stood there, staring at the message, feeling that slow, creeping realization that I wasn't alone in the way I thought I was. I got dressed quickly and started checking the apartment more seriously. I looked at the smoke detector again. Tiny hole in the center. Could have been a sensor. Could have been something else. Then I checked the TV. Another small black device underneath it. Same type as the charger. I unplugged that too. Warm. I started going through the entire apartment, behind the couch, under the table, near the vents, and then I saw it. Inside the air vent above the bed. Something reflective. I dragged a chair over and climbed up. The vent cover wasn't screwed in tightly. I tilted it open slightly and shined my phone flashlight inside. There was a small camera, pointed directly at the bed. My hands started shaking immediately. I almost dropped my phone. I backed off the chair and just stood there, trying to process it. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another message. "Please don't touch the vents." I didn't even think. I grabbed my keys and wallet and walked straight to the door. Calm, controlled. Just get out. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and the moment it closed behind me, I broke into a run. I didn't stop until I was outside the building. Once I was in my car, I locked the doors and finally called the police. They arrived about 15 minutes later. I explained everything, showed them the messages, and they went inside with me. Watching them search the place was surreal. They found multiple cameras. Inside the vent, inside the smoke detector, even one angled toward the bathroom door. But here's the part that messed with me the most. One of the officers asked me, "Did you plug anything into the wall outlets?" I said no. He pulled out one of the USB blocks I had unplugged earlier and opened it. Inside was another camera. Not just cameras, recording devices. Everything had been set up to monitor and capture. The host was arrested 2 days later. Apparently, I wasn't the first. They found footage from previous guests stored on hidden drives in another property he owned. I thought that would give me some closure. It didn't. Because I keep thinking about those messages. They weren't delayed. They weren't automated. They were immediate, which means he wasn't just recording. He was watching in real time. Watching me sit on the couch. Watching me eat. Watching me in the shower. And the part I can't shake is this. When I opened that vent, he knew instantly. So now I always wonder, how long had he been watching me before he sent that first message? I stayed at that Airbnb with 2 of my friends during a weekend trip, just trying to get away for a couple of days. None of us expected anything weird. We just needed a place to crash and relax. It ended up being the last time I ever trusted a rental like that. The house was in Phoenix, in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It looked normal from the outside. Single story, decent yard, nothing fancy. The listing had great reviews, and the host seemed friendly in messages. Self-check-in again. Keypad on the front door. We got in around 6 p.m., dropped our stuff, and spent the night watching movies and ordering food. Everything felt completely fine. Honestly, if anything weird had happened right away, we probably would have left. But nothing did. That first night was quiet. It wasn't until the second night that things started. I woke up around 2 a.m. to a sound I couldn't immediately place, like a faint click. I stayed still, listening. Then I heard it again. Click, pause, click. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere in the house, not outside. I sat up slightly and looked toward the bedroom door. It was closed. For a second, I thought maybe one of my friends had gotten up. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, careful. Not loud enough to be obvious, but definitely there. I remember thinking, okay, one of them probably went to the kitchen. That made sense. But then I checked my phone. Both of them were still in the group chat we'd been messaging earlier. No activity, and neither of them had texted anything. I got out of bed quietly and opened the door just a crack. The hallway was dark, but I could hear something moving in the living room. A soft shift, like someone adjusting their weight. I whispered one of my friends' names. No response. That's when something felt wrong. I closed the door and locked it. The rest of the night, I barely slept. In the morning, I asked both of them if they had gotten up during the night. They both said no. We kind of laughed it off, but it wasn't a comfortable laugh. More like trying to ignore it. That day was normal again. We went out, grabbed food, came back late. Nothing seemed off until that night. Same time, same sound, click. This time, all 3 of us heard it. We were in the living room, just talking, when the front door handle moved slightly. Not enough to open, just enough to make that sound. We all froze. "Did you lock that?" one of my friends asked. "Yeah," I said immediately. Then it happened again. The handle turned slightly, then stopped, like someone was testing it. None of us moved for a few seconds. Then one of my friends stood up and walked toward the door slowly. He looked through the peephole. I don't see anyone. We opened the door. Nothing outside. Empty street. That should have been the moment we left. But we didn't. We told ourselves it was nothing. Maybe someone at the wrong house. Maybe kids messing around. That's how it always starts. The third night is where everything changed. We were all in our rooms when it happened. Loud this time. The sound of the front door unlocking. Not rattling, not testing, unlocking. I sat up instantly. I heard the door open, then close. Footsteps. Inside the house. I didn't even think. I opened my door and stepped into the hallway. At the same time, one of my friends came out of his room. We both looked toward the living room, and that's when we saw him. A man standing near the kitchen. Just standing there, like he belonged. For a second, no one said anything. Then he spoke. "Oh, hey, sorry, just needed to check something real quick." His tone was casual, too casual. "Who are you?" I asked. He hesitated for half a second, then said, "I'm the owner." My stomach dropped. "What are you doing here?" my friend said. "I just had to grab something. Didn't think you'd be up." That didn't make sense at all. None of us had been told he would come by. There was no message, no warning. And the way he said it didn't feel like he forgot to tell us. It felt like he didn't expect to get caught. "Why are you here at 2 in the morning?" I asked. He didn't answer that. Instead, he just smiled slightly and said, "I'll be quick." Then he walked past us, straight down the hallway, toward the bedrooms. That's when everything in my head clicked. This wasn't normal. This wasn't someone checking on the property. This was something else. I stepped in front of him. "No, you need to leave, now." For the first time, his expression changed, just slightly. Annoyance, not fear, not apology. Annoyance. He looked at me for a second, then shrugged. "All right, no problem." And just like that, he turned around, walked back to the front door, unlocked it, and left. We stood there in silence for a few seconds after the door closed. Then all three of us moved at once, locked the door, grabbed our stuff, out. We didn't even pack properly, just threw everything into bags and left. We called the police from a gas station down the road. They came, took our statements, and went to the house. Here's the part that still sticks with me. The officer asked us, "Did he go into any of the bedrooms?" We said no. At least, we didn't think so. They searched the place anyway, and they found something. Inside the closet, in one of the rooms, a small bag, not ours. Inside it, gloves, a flashlight, and a set of keys, multiple keys, for that house, for the locks, for everything. The host was contacted later. He claimed he accidentally stopped by to grab something. Police didn't fully buy it, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with anything serious. We got a refund. That was it. But what keeps bothering me isn't just that he came back. It's what he did before that. Those first 2 nights, the door handle testing, the footsteps. That wasn't random. That was him, checking if we were awake, learning our routines, seeing how we reacted. And the worst part is this. If we hadn't woken up that third night, I don't think he would have stayed in the living room. I travel alone a lot for work. so staying in Airbnbs is pretty normal for me. I've used keypad entries dozens of times and never had a single issue. Until that trip. It was a short stay in Denver, just 3 nights for a client meeting. The place I booked was a small modern townhouse with a smart lock on the front door. The host sent me a unique access code a few hours before check-in. Everything about it felt standard. I got there around 8 p.m., entered the code, and the door unlocked immediately. No problems. Inside was clean, well lit, exactly like the photos. I settled in, ordered food, and spent the rest of the night answering emails. At some point around midnight, I heard a soft beep. I looked up. The keypad on the door lit up for a second, then went dark again. I just assumed it was part of the system, maybe a low battery warning or some kind of auto check. I didn't think about it again. The next morning, I left for my meeting around 9 a.m., locked the door, heard the beep, everything normal. When I came back around 3 p.m. though, something felt off immediately. I entered the code. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. For a second, I thought I had typed it wrong. I checked my phone and re-entered it carefully. The keypad blinked red. Invalid code. My stomach dropped a little. I tried one more time. Same result. Now I was locked out. I messaged the host. "Hey, the code isn't working. I'm outside." A few minutes later, he replied, "That's strange. It should work. Try again." I did. Nothing. Then suddenly the lock clicked. The door opened. I hadn't touched anything. I just stood there for a second staring at it. Then I pushed it open slowly. "Hello?" No response. The house was exactly how I left it. Nothing missing. Nothing moved. Still, I didn't like that. I messaged the host again. "It just unlocked by itself," he replied. "Oh, I reset it remotely. Should be fine now." That explanation made sense, at least at the time. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and didn't think much of it for the rest of the day. That night, though, things changed. Around 1 a.m., I heard the beep again. Same as the night before, but this time, it didn't stop. Beep, pause, beep, pause. I sat up in bed, staring at the front door. The keypad lit up again, like someone was interacting with it. From the outside, I got out of bed slowly and walked toward it, keeping my distance. Another beep. The handle shifted slightly, not fully turning, just enough to move, like someone testing it. My chest tightened. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. The keypad went dark. Silence. I stood there for a full minute before going back to my room and locking the door. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, everything worked normally again. The code worked. The lock responded. No issues. I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. That night was my last night there, and for a while it felt normal again. No beeping, no movement. I started to relax. That was the false sense of security. Around 2 a.m., I woke up suddenly, not from a noise, from a feeling, that instinct that something isn't right. Then I heard it, the sound of the keypad, but different this time, faster, beep, 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 like someone entering codes, wrong ones, over and over. I sat up, completely still. Then the sound stopped. A few seconds passed, and then, click. The lock disengaged. My entire body went cold. The front door opened. Slowly, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 without making a sound. I whispered my address to the dispatcher as quietly as I could. Footsteps entered the house. Not rushing, not searching wildly, just walking. Like whoever it was already knew the layout. I locked my bedroom door and backed into the corner. The footsteps got closer, stopped outside my room. Then the handle moved, once, twice, locked. Whoever was outside didn't try to force it. Instead, they just stood there. I could feel it. That presence right outside the door, waiting. The dispatcher kept whispering to me to stay quiet, that officers were on the way. Those minutes felt like hours. Then suddenly, I heard movement again, fast this time. Footsteps heading back toward the front door. The door opened, closed. Silence. A few minutes later, the police arrived. They searched the house, the street, everything. No one. But they found something. The officer asked me to come look at the front door. There were faint scratch marks around the keypad, like someone had been messing with it. And then he asked me something I didn't expect. Did your host ever mention multiple admin users for the lock? I said no. He nodded slowly. Because this system logs access, and someone else has been controlling it. That didn't fully hit me until later. Someone else. Not just the host. The police contacted him the next day. He claimed his system had been glitching and denied any involvement. They couldn't prove otherwise. No forced entry. No clear suspect. Case closed. I left that same morning. But I keep thinking about that last night. About how the code stopped working earlier that day. About how the door unlocked on its own. About how someone stood outside my room and didn't try to break in. And the part that stays with me the most is this. They didn't need to force anything. They already had access.